Welcome to another episode of UCRD Reviews. So today I'm going to be breaking my rule a little bit. This is not a Universal Century mobile suit. This one's from Plamo Kyo-Shiro, which is a 1980s manga about kids who build model kits and use them to battle each other. If that sounds familiar, that's because they used that premise much later for Gundam build fighters. This is the PF-78-3 Perfect Gundam 3 Red Warrior version anime. Unlike the Perfect Gundam and Perfect Gundam 2, the Perfect Gundam 3 has no basis in Universal Century, really. It's a completely new design. Perfect Gundam 1 was retconned into UC lore, and Perfect Gundam 2 is basically a full armor Gundam repainted. This one is a completely new mobile suit design, and one that we only saw in the KA Signature, not KA Signature, the Gundam Fixed Figuration line. We also saw a variation of it in Gundam Build Fighters, and it's an interesting design. It's very different. I knew this one was going to show up when they did Perfect Gundam 1 and 2, and this was the most unique design of the three. And now we have it in Robot Spirits form, so let's take a look at it real quick. So before I pick up the figure, I did want to show that you do get this really cool illustration here. Very similar to what they tried to do with the full armor, or the Perfect Gundam 2, but you get a cool signed illustration there. Not actually signed, but printed, which was pretty neat. So now you have two of them. The Perfect Gundam original release didn't come with one, unfortunately, but let's take a look at this weird-looking mobile suit. So this is the Red Warrior, and it's got SK all over it. Those are the initials of the main character that pilots this. And this is, going off of a line art look. The fixed figuration version was, Hajime Kotoki's reimagining of it, so there's quite a few differences in that one. A lot of people probably prefer that one, but this one's going off of the accuracy of the 1980s line art. So let's go through articulation. You do have head Vulcans sculpted in there. Head goes down about that far and up about that far. And I think you can do a full rotation. This is one of the very first Gundams that didn't have a face to it, so to speak. I think the Zeta Gundam was obviously the first, but very interesting. You do have these very fragile antennas, probably one of the most fragile Gundam antennas I've ever seen, and you do not get a replacement, which is unfortunate. Now you do get a second set of antennas in there, but they are different, and we'll go over them in just a second. The arms will come up about that far. These thrusters are movable up and down a little bit, or actually a lot, I'm sorry. They're up and down a lot, and then they can go back and forward. Looks like they're thruster effect part compatible. And like I said, the arm will go up about that far. It is ball jointed here. It swivels right here. It can do a full 360. And then you have elbow articulation, comes up about that far. You do have this little tiny shield right here that is removable. That just comes on the figure right out of the box. This rotates 360. And then you have the double ball jointed hands, just like the regular Gundam release. And then you have a little bit of wrist movement in there as well. In the chest, or the torso, it'll come down about that far and come up a little bit. And then you can do maybe not quite, kind of fights you to do a full rotation. I think I'm hitting the skirt armor there. Oh, we might be stuck, yep. So it can't really do a full rotation without knocking into everything around it, but it can move around a decent bit. You do have some nice markings on it at least. And then coming around the back side, you do have the weapon rack here, which is multi-jointed, which actually comes out quite a bit and holds the weapon here, which we'll take a closer look at when we get the weaponry out. You have thruster effect part compatible thruster units there, and then you have a hard point here. You do have a hard point down here, if I can get that up, right there. And the side skirt armor and front skirt armor are movable. These are hinged. This one's ball jointed. It'll come up quite a bit. And then in terms of leg articulation, they'll come up about that far. You do have thigh swivel, so they'll turn all the way around, and they can come outward quite a bit. So knee articulation's pretty good, not the best we've seen, but it'll come up a decent bit. And then these odd looking feet will come down about that far. Oops, that's too far up. Up about that far with toe articulation, and then you get a decent side to side out of it. And you have these weird bars here, so you want to kind of be careful of those. And it is thruster effect part compatible down there as well. So overall, the figure looks nice. You just have to be a bit careful with the antennas. And then you also have a beam saber emitter on the wrist on the other side there. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this one comes with. Just like any other release, you have a hand rack with two different sets of opposing hands, beam saber hands, and gun hands. You also get a beam saber blade, if I can get it out of here, and this one will attach to the arm. Now, from what I've read, I'm not too familiar with this mobile suit like I am a lot of UC stuff. It is supposed to have beam sabers stored somewhere on the rear of the mobile suit. There's supposed to be two of those plus this, and this is nowhere to be found. I don't know if that's just the Kotoki redesign or what that is, but from what I've seen on source material, it's supposed to have 3 total beam sabers, and we only get this one. So the one that we do get looks really great. I like the arm-mounted beam sabers. I think they work really well. You also get these two little pieces. So these are little missile launchers. I don't know if you can kind of see them in there. And they replace the chest vents, if I can get them off there. Let's see, do I have the right one? No, I don't. So let's take the other one off here. And they'll just kind of snap into place like so. There we go. Kind of, possibly. And it looks alright. You can see where it kind of makes it look like the armor came down. It doesn't have a very seamless approach to it, but it looks pretty good. So you have the missiles there. You have a hyper hammer, which uses an actual chain, going all the way back to the old MSIA days. The old hyper hammers used to have chain as well. This has thruster effect compatibility, 4 here and 4 on the back side, because the hyper hammer actually has verniers on it. And then you have this big lug here, which isn't even really carryable. So you have that. You have the bazooka, which is effect part compatible, has a folding handle, and effect part compatible back here as well. It doesn't really do much else aside from store on here. And so what you'll do is attach it to the bottom circle there, and then you can manipulate it and maneuver it around so it's holdable, kind of an underslung bazooka, which actually is a pretty cool little idea. And then lastly here, I talked about it a minute ago, you have an alternate antenna. So you'll see the antenna here are pretty far forward, and this one kind of has it going backward a bit more. You have to be really careful with it and not throw it around like I just did, because these will snap and you don't get a replacement for either one. This has more of a rabbit ear look to it, which is interesting, I suppose. And then lastly, just like the other Perfect Gundams, you can completely remove the face and replace it with either of the alternate faces with eyes, kind of like the other releases. So we have that one, and we have more of a silly one here. So this will just slide up and into the head cavity. Possibly. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it won't, and it'll just stay completely faceless. Let me see if I can do this off camera, because I don't want to break these antennas. So there we go. I had to completely remove the head to actually get that in there. It's a bit stiff, but so you have two different sets of eyes for this release. And then you get one effect part, which is appropriate, I suppose, a slashing beam saber effect. So nothing really crazy in that department, but overall a nice little package aside from the missing beam sabers. So here are the three Perfect Gundams. We have the original, we have Perfect Gundam 2, and the newest one, Perfect Gundam 3, Red Warrior. Now, if you've watched my review on the Perfect Gundam, you'll know that that is probably one of my least favorite figures that I own. It is riddled with issues. The backpack falls off constantly. The side pieces that these yellow canisters hook into will fall off and really need to be super glued. These front armor pieces underneath this cable fall off constantly and really don't fit. This yellow piece on the inside broke because it wasn't molded properly to the contour of the chest, so that snapped, and the antenna came slightly bent. On top of all that, the figure continues to plague me, and when I took it out of the box for this review, I brushed up against the antenna and it snapped with very little effort. So if I pick this up, it's probably going to fall apart. So I'm going to leave that one there. And these two, however, are pretty nice. The Perfect Gundam 2 I like a lot, but it's because it's a Full Armor Gundam repaint, and the Full Armor Gundam was such a great figure. This one just has a different head. And then Red Warrior is very unique, kind of an odd design, almost like if Char had a weird off-brand Gundam. And you know, I do like Perfect Gundam 2, but I don't know. I mean, none of these are super impressive. This one probably being the most impressive, but again, it's just a repaint, so I'd rather just have the original Full Armor Gundam. Speaking of which, we will be taking a look at a review of a different version of that pretty soon. But anyway, back to this one. These are the three Perfect Gundams. This one's pretty easy to find. This one's getting a little harder to find, and then of course this one just came out, so we'll see how it goes. But that's the trio, and then soon we'll be seeing the Perfect Zeong. So the Red Warrior is an interesting mobile suit, definitely. There was a couple little details I left out. Hyper Hammer does that. I don't know why. And it also does that. Don't know why. This thing's kind of hard to situate and mess with just because it has an actual chain. Just like the MSIA, it was kind of a pain to pose with it because it's all over the place. There is a bit of chest flex, but who cares at this point? One thing that was a big problem was when I was posing it, this is the trigger hand, and this is the thumb. this fell off. Of course, it fell off again. This fell off while I was posing, and I mean, it's not even. It's like they forgot to glue it. Like it's not even on there. It won't. Like gravity takes it off. So I'm gonna have to glue it. And yeah, Tamashii Nation's seal of approval, quality control, just like Perfect Gundam 1. You know, of course that's not as bad as all the stuff that's wrong with the other one, but still, it's like you have an exclusive figure that's more expensive. This one was $69 and change, and I'm sure it's going to be more expensive as time goes on. I mean, maybe not, because these aren't. I don't think these Plamo Kyo-Shiro figures are doing all that great. But you know, it's like it's not even worth it if you're going to get any of these quality control problems. For me, you know, they're not as interesting of a figure or a set of figures just because they don't really fit in with the rest of my collection. All the UC stuff. I mean, Perfect Gundam 1, the design just looks goofy. Perfect Gundam 2 fits in fine. It's just a blue full armor Gundam, and then this one just looks kind of odd. So if there's anything in my collection I would eventually get rid of, it's probably going to be these three. And yeah, but you get a cool illustration at least. So I don't know. It you know, if this is your thing, go for it. Get it now while it's still cheap, because it is an exclusive. But otherwise, I'd say pass on it. Pass on the whole set, unless you really like a blue full armor Gundam, then get that one. But I would just pass on everything. So we'll see how Perfect Zeong is. I have high hopes for that one at least. So I mean, still no Rickdom 2, unfortunately. I'm still waiting for that one to show up, and then I will get it reviewed and get it on my channel as quick as I can, because that one I'm really looking forward to. So thank you for watching the review, and I'll see you next time.